just in case anyone is new here, I see a few new names. Um, I'm one of the chairs of the Young Lawyers Committee. I don't think the other two are able to join today because they're at INTA. But thanks for joining. And we do a Zoom call the second Tuesday of every month. So hopefully you guys can come to the next ones as well. This one will focus on the transition between junior associate to mid-level associate. We have people who have done a wide range of taken different paths. So I guess we'll just start for now and hopefully Eric can join later. But why don't we just go through each panelist and you can kind of say your career path and trajectory first. So Jenna, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I graduated from undergrad with an engineering degree. I worked as an engineer for ExxonMobil for a couple of years and I was bored out of my mind. So then I went to law school. I worked at a law firm, a patent litigation boutique for 1 year, then did a federal clerkship. From there, I went to Paul Weiss. And I was there for 5 years until the patent litigation group there broke off and we formed a new boutique. We're almost 2 years old, and it has been wonderful. I was promoted to partner just recently. I'm only about 3 months in, so I can talk about the transition because it's quite fresh for me. And I think it was worth the grind, and it was worth all the things that I've learned along the way. And I'm excited to start this new chapter, which so far looks a lot like the last chapter for all of you, just as an FYI. But that's kind of how I got to this particular point. I'll hand it off, since it looks like we're going in order, I'll hand it off to Sam.
Thanks, Jenna. So my name is Sam Eichner. I am a trademark and copyright litigator at Pillsbury, Winthrop, Pittman in the New York office. I have been out of law school for about 11 years now, I guess, give or take. And I started with a clerkship, then went to a boutique firm, did some time as a commercial litigator, before kind of moving to an IP only firm, Finnegan Henderson, where I spent probably the bulk of my career, and I've been at Pillsbury for about 3 years now. Really interesting, kind of exciting BD role that couldn't be more different, I think, from where I was before. It's kind of like going from being staffed on big litigation teams with 8, 10 lawyers to kind of running my own practice, which has been a big challenge and also a lot of fun.
Okay, next is Eric. We're just saying your background and your different positions since law school.
Okay, great. Yes, and sorry for joining a little late. I had a meeting right before this. Such is life at a company. So I'm at Merck, and I've been an in-house counsel doing patent work at Merck for 2 years. Before that, I spent almost 8 years at a few different law firms, and each of them actually had its challenges, and I'm definitely hopeful to share a couple if there's time. And one of them actually I left in part because of how the mid-level transition was kind of, the work was drying up, because as your billing rate gets higher, there's less that you can just raise your hand and kind of get staffed on without a lot of without any friction at all. And I think part of that is building a brand for yourself and building a particular expertise, which I don't think, honestly, I did do by the time I was a 3rd or 4th year there. But I did. I spent the most of my time at Wolf Greenfield doing patent prosecution for 4.5 years before moving to Merck. And at Merck, I'm in a patent prosecution, counseling, and due diligence role.
Okay, great. And then Justin.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. My name is Justin Fleischacker. I'm a senior associate at Paul Hastings, specializing in life science patent litigation. My background's in biomedical engineering, and I've been here since my summer. So I've seen the whole transition from what it was like to be a summer associate to being a junior associate through med-level and now being a senior. So I can definitely speak to that. I think I'm probably the most junior on the panel, so I may have gone through this the most recently.
Great. And then last but not least, Nick.
Sure. I graduated law school in 2018 and started in New York at a smaller firm, doing both trademark prosecution and also some corporate work. And then after a few years, I transitioned to Leeson Ellis, which is an IP boutique, where I was doing your traditional trademark copyright practice. And then about a year and a half ago, I made the move in-house. So right now I'm at Authentic Brands doing trademark and copyright in-house.
Okay, great. Thank you guys all for taking the time to share your experiences with us. I think I'll start by asking, for those who switch from one firm to the next, kind of in between the junior to mid-level associate range, why did you do that and how did you decide to do that and kind of the process? I know there's a few of you, so.
Yeah, for me, it was a couple factors. My first firm was a small firm. So kind of the size of your firm often dictates what kind of clients you have, what kind of work you work on. And so I was looking to work on more kind of bigger clients, bigger name clients, more sophisticated work that you can kind of more easily find at midsize and bigger firms. So that was one reason. And the other reason is just because after a few years out of law school, I kind of settled on, okay, I want to exclusively focus on IP rather than having it be most of my practice and then doing other stuff. I wanted to have a singular focus.
I can talk next. So I moved firms twice, and the first time I moved when I was only a second year because I wanted more life sciences IP work, and really all work at that firm was drying up, and that firm actually doesn't exist anymore. And if I neglect to mention this, my background's biochem, and when I entered law school, I thought I wanted to do more of the filing and prosecuting of patents, but I wanted to keep an open mind. And that open mind led me to a more of a litigation focused firm, but an IP boutique nonetheless. There just wasn't a whole lot. I mean, their life sciences litigation practice basically ended weeks before I joined, which was just, sometimes that happens for those of you in law school and first year attorneys, like it sometimes you just like say, oh shucks, and you move on because like things outside your control are gonna make or break how busy you are in a given year, unfortunately, as a junior. So I left that firm along with like dozens of associates. I mean, they were leaving that firm in droves. So it felt like I was in the minority if I stayed, and I would have been. I left my second firm, and that's the second firm is what I was describing a little bit a minute ago, because I don't think I did a good enough job of distinguishing myself in terms of hours worked, like on weekends, in the evening, and just kind of knowing the record and being an expert on the cases you're assigned to, and that was also litigation focused. So I wasn't staffed on cases that proceeded beyond 3, 4, 6 months, at least not more than a couple. And you really need to be staffed on like 3 or 4 there to like make your hours. And they were very, so basically in order to get more hours, I said, I'm going to look outside this firm or just try and talk to all the partners I could. And very few of the partners had like work to just give me, which wasn't surprising. So I left that firm to again kind of do more life sciences work and pivot a little bit to prosecution. So I haven't looked back.
After my clerkship, I picked a new law firm in part because it's hard being a first-year associate, and you inevitably don't do things the right way, and there's a lot of learning that happens in those first couple of years. And I did like the idea of starting off with a clean slate. And there were some things with my first law firm that I liked less than the law firms I was looking at. I wanted a law firm with a big New York presence, which I certainly got out of Paul Weiss. So that's a little bit of the story behind my reason for switching firms after clerkship.
So I switched firms, gosh, 3 times. So I've been at 4 firms total. Each time was a different reason. I think the first 2 switches were really to get the right kind of experience. You know, in the first instance, I was at a boutique where I was doing a lot of trademark prosecution, which was great. I was happy to do that work. I wanted to do it and I wanted to learn it, but not at the expense of litigation. You know, I had just come off the federal clerkship and I was excited to be on litigations, and like 99% of what I was doing was trademark prosecution. So that was the reason I left the first firm. The second firm, I was there for about 3 years and I did some really fun IP litigation, including a trial. But once that trade secret trial ended, there was kind of a transition in the kind of work that I was asked to be doing. And, you know, like some of it was insurance defense. And I said, no, we're not going to do this. I do not want to be an insurance defense lawyer. So I left to go to Finnegan, where I was doing IP all the time. And that was kind of where that was the last move where I really was still looking for the right experience as an attorney, right, to kind of mold my career. The move to Pillsbury was really not so much about experience. It was really about growing my book of business, developing a practice, moving back to New York, where my wife was finishing a PhD and was getting tired of going back and forth on Amtrak. And it just made sense for us to make a switch. So I went to Pillsbury for kind of different reasons.
Okay, great. And then I think, Justin, you said you stayed at the same firm the whole time. So you can say the flip side of it, kind of,
Yeah.
how's your experience? And then even the experience at the same firm, kind of moving up in the ranks.
Sure. So yeah, so I have been at the same firm the whole time, and I think that just to sort of fill in, it sounds like a lot of people were shifting because they were looking for a different type of experience. In my circumstances, I just was able to have an open dialogue with the partners and with the people I was working with to explain the type of experiences that I was looking for. So I wasn't really having any issues with regards to like my development, or if I had any concerns about anything in my development, I was able to voice that. And then we would look to try to see what cases I could be staffed on to get that experience. I think in my circumstances, specifically, there was a senior associate that I was working with that just, you know, they ended up leaving the firm, and the only person that was there was me below them. So it was like an 8th year that left, and then I was that 3rd year. So I was sort of thrust with a lot of experience really early on, and it was really helping with my growth, but it was a lot. But so, I mean, I got a lot of development very quickly, which really encouraged me to stay here. And I also had a lot of work to do. So there wasn't concerns about that. But I think that, you know, it's important to advocate for yourself. I think as a junior attorney, to be like, these are the type of experiences that I'm looking for. And really have that open dialogue. And if the place that you're at is not really willing to hear that, you know, you should be trying to push, but, you know, then I think that may be where you're looking to possibly try to transition if it's not well received. But lucky for me, it was very well received that I was trying to speak for the development for myself and advocated for myself to get those opportunities.
Justin, a quick question: were those development conversations like a standard part of the end of year review process, or were they all ad hoc, like the ones that were successful that pushed you? Yeah.
No, none of them were built in.
Okay.
None of them were built in. It's so, I mean, like, sometimes you get the reviews, sometimes you don't. Sometimes people are just too busy to be able to sit down with you. So you really have to sort of manifest it and reach out yourself for it. And, you know, ask, can I get coffee with you? And I always tell people the onus is on you to try to make the time, because, you know, I don't always know if, like, the partners that are very busy are going to be able to, like, you know, look to carve out time. Some of them will, but, you know, other ones that are very busy may not be able to make that time or find that time unless you ask for it. So I think the onus is always on the more junior attorney to be focus on your own development.
Okay, and then I guess for those who have switched, once you decided you did want to leave, what did you do as a next step?
I was coming out of a clerkship, so mine was easy. It was a natural pivot point to look around. I just want to quickly piggyback on two things that Eric and Justin said. The first is it's super important to have someone who's advocating for you. So once you find that leader, you should follow them as far as they're willing to let you follow them, because they are going to train you and help you. The other thing is that you want to be in an environment where you're constantly learning. That's going to help you in making these big career transitions from junior to mid-level, from mid-level to senior, from senior to counsel, and then to partner, and so on. So if you've got good people around you and you're constantly learning, I'm of the position that you're gonna learn, you're gonna grow, you're gonna make those transitions.
And just to follow up on what Jen is saying, I completely agree with that, and I've seen it kind of secondhand, but I think that, you know, you can look for that person, and you may find them, you may not. And I think maybe I've kind of been in the latter category where I've had to kind of be my own advocate for my career, because there's just no one else that is doing that for you, right? So I think while it's great to kind of find that person, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself and forge your own path.
Yeah, and Lindsay, so was the question kind of like,
Just like for people who are looking to move once they've decided they want to, what should they do?
what was the first step? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess in some ways we're lucky in that there's our, I guess, IP litigation and IP kind of generally, there's usually a recruiter or 15 willing to wanting to call you and get your business, or you know how they do it. They it's almost like a no cost business to you, because you get an advocate in a recruiter that will take the time to contact firms with openings, or even create an opening with their connections, but they don't get paid by you, they get paid by the firm. If and when the firm hires you and you stay for like 30 days, let's say. So both times I moved firms, I used a recruiter. I think I used the same recruiter, or at least attempted to use the same recruiter the second time that I successfully used the first time, but my needs had changed. So I guess as a word of advice, definitely, don't be married necessarily to your recruiter friend that got you the first job. There might be others that ultimately are better suited if you're looking for a certain type of work, if you're narrowing, or if you just want to pivot a little bit. So I'll also say that NYPLA has job postings. I think that we're starting to I think beef that up a little bit. Maybe expand more to in-house jobs. But that is a place I checked both times, and yeah, I think there's a couple websites like Martindale Hubbard maybe, or I think there's even a website direct to in-house openings. So a lot of this stuff is on the internet, but sometimes getting a coach, getting a recruiter, putting in some extra hours to do research on what firms have the practice that fits exactly what you want, and then either trying to go out to coffee with people from that firm, or networking in their spaces is a good way to go about doing that.
This is probably not the right forum to plug a different organization, but I spent a lot of time in AIPLA, and that did help me kind of shift from one firm to another, just getting super involved, meeting a lot of people, getting on committees. I think I chaired the law students committee for a while, and I was just came to know a lot of people there. And one of the senior partners at Finnegan, sent my resume in, and the rest is history, right? So I second that, right? Just going out and meeting people and getting involved is important.
Does anyone else want to add anything? Or if not, I was going to kind of open the floor up for questions from anyone listening, if you have anything.
And for those that didn't join early, Justin and I were talking about how we've lived through a lot and we've learned lessons from it, and we're very happy to share them with you outside of this forum. So if you want to reach out to any of the 5 of us, I'm sure we would be willing to do one of those coffee chats that Eric was referring to or something else, and tell you what we've lived through, because we of course don't want you to make some of the same mistakes we've made, and we want you to make we want to help guide you in making good decisions for yourselves in your careers.
I guess while we're waiting to see if anyone has questions, do you guys have a piece of advice?
I think to echo what other people have said about if you're not getting the kind of work that you want and you're interested in something, in addition to reaching out to partners for coffees and an informal chat like that, one additional way that I did it and I found to be effective was I used my firm's conflict check process to kind of do that, where we had, our conflict checks had the parties and then kind of a sentence about what the matter was. So if those came into my inbox and I saw one that looked really interesting based on the matter or was with a partner I wanted to work with, I'd respond to whoever sent it and just say, this looks really interesting. Let me know if, I could help you with this or something like that. So it's right in front of them. You don't have to, manufacture, a separate meeting and talking hypotheticals. It's right there.
Yeah, I'll second Nick. That I got several short-term matters from doing conflict check review at my old firm. There'd be like 6 conflict check emails a day, and you don't have to like hunt. You'll like start like flag it when it comes in and then go back to it when you maybe run out of work the next week or 2 weeks later. It'll still probably be pre-staffing, right? A lot of these conflict checks will take like a month or so to actually staff the people that they want if they get the matter. Another thing, I don't know if we've mentioned like assignment managers. So a lot of firms have assignment partners or a coordinator who's not a lawyer that kind of doles out assignments. And I guess the idea is to try to balance work and keep everyone close to their hours by monitoring hours and just like feeding certain work to you so that you don't have to do as much work as an associate to like get the work, right? Which is great in theory. For those who are at firms or about to like move to firms that have assignment managers, like don't rely on them more than say like 70% of you. Like I would definitely still advocate, get coffee, do conflict check reviews, like kind of you should like 30% or more of your kind of like reliance should be on yourself and you being able to find a new matter, because the assignment manager is trying to serve everyone. They're not an advocate just for you. But it's certainly better to, I think, generally to be at a firm, to have a firm that has an assignment manager. So yeah, if you were to pick a firm between 2 and assignment manager is the only difference, great. For those that don't have assignment managers, I think like the way I kind of overcame that issue that I referred to when work seemed to dry up, because I was a 3rd year, I was a 4th year, and there wasn't a lot of doc review and kind of other matters I could just quickly be staffed on, and they wouldn't care how much I was billing because I was too expensive. At that point, like you try to bulk up on short matters. So there's probably, you have a relationship with a partner that does a certain area of law, or there's a certain like within IP that you want to do more of, you like almost like you could like depending on their personality and annoy them once a month, like kind of say, I'm here, I'm still doing work, sorry, I'm still looking for work, and I know that you have this client and you guys do these due diligences once a month, and I'd just love to be considered for one. I'm going to show you how great, like I'm going to knock it out of the park. And one can become 3 and become 5, and you get 5 or 10 billable hours or more every time you do that. That could help fill gaps. So short term, don't just look for long-term assignments.
A question came in: what is the best way to advocate for yourself?
I think you
Yeah,
need
I was gonna,
someone
go ahead,
who's
Jenna.
willing to listen. So you got to find the right audience first. And sometimes that might just be a mid-level associate who you're hustling for. Sometimes it might be a partner who's paying attention to you. But you need someone who's open to hearing you out and hearing your needs and helping you achieve whatever goal you have in mind. And that's tricky though, of course. And you're going to connect with some people and you're not going to connect with others. So maybe the most powerful person is not the one you resonate with, especially as a junior attorney. Maybe it's someone else, and they can help you make your way towards a certain goal.
Yeah, I was gonna add that, I mean, I think that one of the best ways to advocate for yourself too is just, do a good job on your work. And I know that sounds very, simplistic, but if you take the time and make sure, you've thought through and thought forward, like, you're not just thinking about the task that you have at hand, you're understanding how the task fits within the case, and so you can do a better job on that task, reread it a few times, make sure there's no typos, because sometimes when people see typos, they're gonna be like, oh, they may not give the draft as much credit. So just really take your time on the assignment, do a good job on it, and then as you're doing that, you're building a brand of doing good work, and then you're thought of for future assignments. I really liked working with that one person. I want to add them to all of my cases. I have a new matter coming in for a pitch. I want to pull them in on a pitch. So I think it's just, taking your time on your assignments, really thinking them through, and really just trying to do the best that you can on them. And also, I mean, as a junior attorney, I often say that, the best, way that you can advocate for yourself is being as available as you can. Like if someone says, hey, can someone help me on this assignment over a weekend? Like, I mean, most people probably don't want to work on it over a weekend, but, if they're asking, it's probably really important. So if you volunteer for that, you're building up your brand as being available, being helpful, doing good work, and then they want to keep working with you.
I love that. Yeah, I completely agree. Your work product has to be great because then people will want to help you do whatever it is or get whatever experience it is that you're targeting. And partners know that recruiters are hounding you and offering you positions at other firms. So they're going to want, if you're doing good work, they're going to want to do what they can to keep you and to keep you engaged.
And I guess, Jenna, can you talk quickly about just, I don't know, I guess the process of how you became partner and if there's anything that goes on behind the scenes? I'm sure there is.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I think
piggyback on that, I'm curious from Jenna and Sam and Justin, how transparent your firms were to you in the mid to senior and counsel transition. Like, what competencies did you have to hit? Was that transparent to you? The Jenna go, yeah.
I don't think that there's a ton of transparency. I think there has to be a business case for elevating people, and sometimes the stars align, and that's great. And if you're hustling and you're doing good work, then people are going to want to promote you and get you into a position where you're running the client relationship and you have the fancy title that brings the client comfort and that helps you in business development. So I think just bottom line, if you're doing good work, there's a little bit of blind trust that it's all going to work out. And if you are working with people that inspire you, that you think are going places, I think generally that blind trust works out. Sometimes it doesn't, but I think my perspective now is oftentimes it does, and I think that might be easier to say now that I'm on the other side of the experience, but very little transparency, really just hoping it all worked out. And 3 months in, it's worked out. Hopefully it lasts. So it's been good.
And I would agree with that. I think that there's not, necessarily a lot of transparency. I think, as counsel at Pillsbury, we kind of get a window into certain things that partners are, seeing and doing. And, we're involved in all of the kind of business aspects of the firm. But obviously there's things that we don't necessarily know or discussions we're not involved in. So it's kind of like a middle ground, I guess. And I would say that, just my approach has been, worry about your practice, right? Worry about your work product, your clients, and growing your book of business, because at the end of the day, if those things are good, the rest will follow just fine. I mean, whether somebody wants to give you a title somewhere or not is sort of less important in my mind, because you know, it's your work product and it's your client relationships that are going to really matter.
I mean, I agree with all that, and I think that one thing that, at least from the junior to mid-level, I mean, my firm, they have a symposium that sort of collects all the mid-levels from across the country and sort of explains sort of what this process is going to look like, and, you know, there's more responsibility that's going to be involved now, because, I mean, being a mid-level, I think, is really difficult sometimes, because you're kind of managing above and below you, because, like, you're trying to make sure the people above you stay on top of what they have to do. And I mean, you're trying to get someone above you to do work, and it's like there's a sort of art to try to get that done. And you have to be respectful about it, but you also have to keep it on their radar and not be too annoying about it. But, you know, obviously you're serving the client, and you got to make sure everything's done well. But you're also starting to train the younger associates, and it's like, you know, I don't know. When I was a third year, I started to kind of start to figure it out. Like first and second year, I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I don't really know how everything fits in. Third year, things started to look a little bit clearer for me, and third, fourth year, I started to sort of figure it out. I'm like, but now I need to help other people that are below me. I'm like, I don't really even know if I know what I'm doing. So it's kind of like, you know, creating a team atmosphere, at least what I try to do as mid-levels, like create a team atmosphere, like, you know, we're going to figure this out. Like, I may not know, you may not know, but we're going to figure it out, and we're going to propose a plan and move forward with it. But, you know, that mid-level stage is like, you know, for me, I felt that it's like, when I was a first or second year, I may not know what it was, and like there's somebody that was probably responsible for it. When I was mid-level now, I felt I can't say I don't know anymore. It's like I'll figure it out, and like that's sort of how I felt about it. So it was a little bit more responsibility that really came with that transition.
Okay, great. And then I think the last question we haven't covered yet is the two of you that moved in-house, I guess. What was the tipping point for moving in-house, or anything about your experience transitioning?
For me, at least, I kind of was always moving in that direction. I never swore off kind of staying at a law firm and doing the partner track, but I was always leaning towards in-house. And so I got to the 5-ish year mark, where all these things everybody is talking about, where you start taking on more responsibility, start training people younger than you. All of that starts hitting you, your billable rate becomes more expensive. So all of that stuff happens around that time. And so that's a typical time to make the move. So that's kind of, it was always my plan in one way or the other. And so at that point, you're more attractive to in-house employers because you know what you're doing. But you're not so senior that for you personally, it hopefully is not as much of a financial hit. But it's also experience level you match more often in-house.
Yeah, there's not much to add. My experience was very similar. I was a 6th year when I was looking in earnest at in-house roles, and like Nick, I thought I figured I would see myself in-house. I didn't swore off partnership, but it was like it wasn't a large chunk of my mind share about where I thought I wanted to take my career. And part of the draw of in-house, of course, is like no billable hours and typically less weekend work, less evening work, which definitely sounded good to me. And at that point, I just got married, and I thought this is probably where I want to end up, potentially being at a company for years and years. Whereas at a law firm, sometimes you don't have control over how many decades you spend there. And I'm very happy I made the transition. There are challenges, you know, I think one good thing about law firms is they kind of set you up for, okay, moving one level to the next, like moving 1 year, like every year I do this, and then suddenly you're at a company and it's more the real world, like everyone gets rated against each other, and there's more of a, you know, bonuses, like it's like implicit competition, but you're not really supposed to be competitive. That you kind of have to figure out, but I certainly like knew I wanted a more, I think, consistent, predictable schedule, as well as like even dealing with scientists more often than I did at the law firm.
I think I'd also add, if you are thinking about in-house, it is almost always much more challenging to get that in-house job. There aren't nearly as many recruiters coming after you. So it's a lot of work on your own. And a lot more, at least I found, like a numbers game. You're gonna apply to far more places to get your in-house job than you would just switching law firms. So I would say if you are thinking about moving in-house, even if you're not necessarily ready to make the jump tomorrow, start looking, because the time frame, the lead time to actually starting in-house is going to be a lot longer than switching law firms.
Good point. Yeah, it took me a year.
Yeah,
Almost.
and also,
It was about
Yeah,
at least 6 months.
yeah.
I'll say also like the networking aspect again, like Sam was saying, really helps for that too. Because I've had 3 in-house jobs and 2 of them I got because I knew someone there. So it definitely doesn't hurt to know people.
And on
Uh,
top of that, if you're gonna stay in the law firm, make friends with people like Eric and Nick, because when they leave, they're gonna be your potential clients, so you better get friendly with them before they go anywhere.
That's also a great point. I
Yeah.
moved in-house and my company is now a client of my former firm. I moved some of the work, so it's a revolving door in that sense. So always keep up your relationships.
Okay, if no one else has any other questions, the last thing was, if the speakers don't mind, would you want to put your emails in the chat so everyone has it, so people can reach out if they have more questions? Otherwise, thank you guys for participating, and thank you everyone for coming. Our next just general Young Lawyers Committee meeting will be the second Tuesday of December, so that is December 10th at 12 p.m. So hopefully we'll all see you there, and that will be much more casual, just, you know, everyone introducing themselves and hanging out. So hope to see you guys all there. And then if you are interested in more in-house stuff, me and Eric are planning a talk about in-house lawyers at the end of February, so look out for that too. Thank you guys all. We'll see you at the next meeting.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.